think that might be the kind of penetration we need. Vinny Eastwood Show, Sundays, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live on Ground Zero Radio. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites, my fellow slaves of the global plantation. The Vinny Eastwood Show is bad news. It's like the news, but so much worse. It's the lighter side of genocide. Just because we're being exterminated doesn't mean we can't enjoy it. Otherwise, what's the point of being killed? The Vinny Eastwood Show, where the only thing worse than living in a high-tech global police state run by child trafficking Satanists is Vinny's jokes. See, this beastly, ghastly show has been exposing our scumbaggery, which we call necessary.
Yeah, and as the World Economic Führer, I believe we should give him a little gift with a little card that says Merry Christmas from Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah, we could send something through his windows. Yeah, I've been speaking with Jacinda Ardern that we need to eliminate the threat of Vinny Eastwood.
Why do you say Vinny Eastwood when it's clearly Winnie Eastwood?
Absolutely, he's a major impediment to our planet, and it's how are we going to get rid of him?
We could poison his water supply.
But we've done that already.
Okay, I'm running out of ideas here. I'm sorry, I've got a lot going on. Klaus Schwab Jr. telling people that I'm some evil overlord.
Oh, that's just not true. You see, we're lifetime actors.
Yes, we play the role, don't we?
But I am still glad, even if I am not really the overlord, and I have penetrated all the cabinets of the world, penetration is big for me.
Oh, it's big for me, too. I wouldn't be me if it weren't for the copious quantities of penetration.
Yes, well, thank God my mother's out of the way. Otherwise, I never would have been king. Just keep to go on and on. You know, the stress of dealing with this Vinny Eastwood problem has probably what killed her. I mean, she was a very young 96, you see.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites to the Vinny Eastwood Show. And today is like, I don't remember, my 5th day in the row of really busting my ass, doing responsible and constructive things. So if I'm not as bubbly and laughy and so cheerful, you know why. My very special guest joining us today has appeared in a recent article on the intranet, which I have not read entirely through because it is quite long in its scope, but to notice, of course, that instead of any video of the person in question or any quotations or things of that nature, you have instead the Jacinda Adrenochrome, with all of her beauty and scumbaggery teeth. And you see, we needed a government that had teeth in New Zealand, and it's and we did so quite fantastically, didn't we, ladies and gentlemen? It really took a bite out of you, didn't it?
Falling over here.
It's just it's the king. It's the king's speech that really gets it out of you, doesn't it? Now, I've had a little time to actually prepare the show today, and we have other people's names on the actual guest things, whereas our guest today is actually Irene Kalinowski, and some of you may remember her from a show about a year ago called Cervix with a Smile, where, of course, we were talking about midwifery and the various kinds of wifery that go on inside that particular industry, some of which are very wifery indeed. And we had quite a good chat about the corruption with the industry and those ladies being mandated out and what have you. And so, moving forward, today we have Irene here, and she's going to be talking about her latest book. Irene, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Vinny. It's a bit cloudy, but it's. I'm not going to say good morning because I don't want you to die. Bonjour. Good day. It's been a year since we did our last had our rendezvous on the station, where it covered many things, from the mandates to the hospital protocols to the kidnapping of my...
Attention all ground zero.
But today, since that year, I've been through a criminal trial.
Go on.
Yeah, and it's been quite entertaining. I'll just recap, because I was mandated and fired on the 15th of November 2021. So I was fired by our lovely Ashley Bloomfield. Of course, they say they didn't mandate anybody and that they weren't forced, but people were forced to have food taken from the table. And I wasn't going to breach my code of ethics. So I wrote to them, I think it was in October, and had concerns about the breach of human rights, the lack of informed consent, the shortage of midwives, the effects it would have on women, sent them the whole peer-reviewed research, and they totally ignored it and sided with the vaccinated midwives. Stuff at that time published an article where a proud 6,000 some doctors had signed up to approve the bioweapon, which we can't call it anything else, can we? So what happened was that I was attacked. I gave up 5 lab forms. There was two women. There was 2 lab forms for one woman who was a intensive care nurse. She was mandated. And I gave her all the forms she needed for her pregnancy, because she knew and could self-care, and it was just in case she couldn't get a caregiver, because a lot of midwives were not caring for the non-jabbed. The other woman was a beautiful daughter, Jessie, that lived in South Auckland, and they came to me on the 14th of November, and I gave her a maternity package with a few lab forms that would last her until she found another midwife, because I was leaving the next day, forced out of working. So then there was another woman called Bhumi. Now, Bhumi was from India, and I have a great affiliation. I love my Indian ladies. I looked after them for 20 years. And Bhumi was no longer under my care, and she was booked into the hospital. But one day she came to me and she was crying, and I took on the surrogate mother, because their parents couldn't come because of the COVID lockdowns. She was alone. So I said, if you get any trouble, I says, come back, I'll be your mother. So she did. The hospital didn't give her a appointment. Her baby was due within a couple of weeks. She was crying, her baby hadn't moved. Of course, she was vaccinated, and so was her husband. So I was worried about this experimental jab on this pregnant woman and crying because the baby wasn't moving. So, of course, I had some kit that I'd stashed away in the garage. So I pulled it out and checked her out and called the hospital and said, you know, the baby's moving, you haven't given her an appointment, I'm in the private, will you please check her out? And it was no problem. They were happy because I'd saved them some work in their overstretched establishment. And then they didn't give her another appointment. Baby was fine. So she turned up again in early labour. And I said, well, you can walk around my garden in early labour and I can hold your hand. Now, I wasn't well at the time. I got catheter tubes in and everything else. But I was happy to just sit there and just be there. So, of course, the hospital banned me from going in to be in there. And the midwife there said I was illegal. I couldn't care for her. I said, I'm not caring for her. So I called this manager, this Emma Farmer, who is known to, if she doesn't like you, she'll gun for you, because I've met it before with bullying way back in 2015. So anyhow, I said to this Emma Farmer, send me an email, send me your concerns, I'll meet you with a private. She didn't do that. She wrote straight to the Midwifery Council, who then had secret meetings with her and suspended me for posing a danger to the public not vaccinated in a clinical setting. Well, both me and her husband were vaccinated, so they were probably telling me that the jab didn't work in any case. And being suspended actually put my whole life on hold because I'm an author. I write books for universities. So they tried to defame who I was. So I sent them a resignation letter in, I think, December the 5th, 2021. Take my name off the system because I could see what was coming. I don't feel safe in it. Remove me from your register. No, they were too busy to do that, so they hung on to it. And then Emma Farmer put the complaint in on the 22nd of December after Boomy had had her baby under their care. They were paid for all her care. She had a vaccinated midwife to look after the care. All that was planned with her. And then the witch hunt started. What do you think to that?
I think it's part of a long line of people, and I was talking to a guy a little while ago about how things work in government agencies, and I said, well, I don't exactly know how they work, but my guess is that there's a lot of people who are paid to do their job, and they'll only do the job that they're paid to do. So if anything changes, it's because somebody was doing unpaid work, right? Working behind the scenes, advocating, doing things, getting ignored, having to try again, getting demonized, ostracized, made redundant, fired, and things of that nature in order to prevent any kind of positive changes from happening, because the people who are being paid aren't paid to make positive changes happen.
Absolutely, and what they become the overseers, right? So they are paid to do the job, but they are rewarded with promotions. It's communism. It was like the SIS. Everybody, gossiping and, reporting anyone that didn't follow the rules. So this is what happened. So I sent in a notice of annulment and abrogated, a formal one, my resignation, and a cease and desist order, because I was in the private, and just because I knew they were going to attack me. And attack me they did. I had the practice competency people onto me. You're a sovereign citizen, don't pay bills, we think you're going to defame the profession. And at the same time, the Ministry of Health Enforcement started to attack me. So I took them to the High Court. I took Midwifery Council to the High Court, and I had valid claims, and the judge even said that, but the problem is that they can't understand English. Okay, and they do this on purpose. These judges are speaking a foreign language. They're speaking legalese. And what I found in the High Court case was that they struck it out because it was vexatious and they couldn't understand English. So I decided to work with Inland Air Water Council, and we set up the International Investigation Team. So as a journalist, I actually collated the 20 plus kgs of paperwork, because Napoleon says if you want to win a war, you've got to let the enemy destroy itself. And we've had fun through this time watching them. What's your opinion on that one?
Well, the Prussian pincer movement saw to Napoleon, didn't it? And well, anyway, I digress. It seems as though the basic language that we're talking about here is legalese, and it's plenty legal, but there ain't no ease in it. It's actually quite a difficult language to understand. There's a dictionary called Black's Law Dictionary, and all these words that sound like English ain't actually English. Imagine if you had an encoding device that you could put words in, you could spit it out, like the Enigma machine, and other people wouldn't be able to understand what you're talking about, but you and all the other people who speak that language, just like the lawyers, the judges, will understand what you're talking about. And you'll be taken for a ride because you won't know what's going on. They'll be like if I was to say as a lawyer to the judge, and then the judge replies, and you're like, what the hell's going on? And the lawyer goes to you, you see, that's why you got a lawyer, mate, because otherwise you wouldn't understand what we're talking about. Now, it's just...
Well, the thing is with that, Vinny, is I realised they got this Jonathan Schwab from Luke Cunningham Clay, the top lawyers, and he was quivering in that courtroom because I did stand in there, said, I'm Irene, I born here, Tanga to Fenua, Tamon Nui, Kiwa, in God we trust, and I can't be complicit in fraud. And I waved my scope of practice up and said, and no one, no lawyer, judge, or anyone can make me breach my code of ethics. So they quivered a little bit. But what helped us in that court, you see, I had to go on this journey of knowing something about the Scumbaggery Trust and the Universal Commercial Code. And that when we're born, we're actually millionaires. It's just that these are just self-appointed administrators that thought we were just useless eaters and they would manage our funds. We're the real bankers, right? So you've got to go back to 1933 when all the governments went down and the gold was taken to given to the banks. And we, the people, everything's paid for. Your house is paid for, your rates, everything. You shouldn't be paying for one dime for that. And every dollar we spend is a tax credit. We should get $1 back. Maybe you should keep all your receipts and send them to the IRD. So with that, we found out what the fraud was with the mortgages. It was just because I sold my home, and in the small print, in that title deed or whatever, they don't give you a contract when you start it off. It's all lies. Your mortgage is already paid off before they just charge you interest on what's yours, and they charge you for a land that doesn't belong to you. But on that paper, it said they'd appointed 2 bank clerks as power of attorney. So even if you sell your home, it's not yours. But it said, we have power of attorney unless, and not revocable unless we're informed of an event, right? So an event is fraud, basically. So Inland Air Water Council publicly revoked their power of attorney by publicising the fraud. What do you think to that?
Fraud is, I think, very interesting. Well, there's an office in New Zealand called the Serious Fraud Office. And what you would think the Serious Fraud Office does is investigate and shut down frauds which are serious. When in actual fact, what they do is they set up and participate in frauds that are very serious, right? And protect very serious fraudsters from being investigated or brought to justice. Much like the health system, if you add up the deaths from cancer, medical complications, and people who die from properly prescribed drugs, those are three of the leading causes of death, and if you combine them, that would make the Ministry of Health, which you would think is there to keep you healthy and to save your life, is actually the leading cause of death. And just like the justice system, where you have, I believe it was in 2017, if I remember correctly, there was an article in the Herald stating about 1,014 New Zealand police officers had been charged for assaulting people unduly, smashing their stuff up for no reason, violating their rights, raping them, murdering them, so on and so forth. About 1,014 of such charges. Out of those charges, 1,012 officers got let off without any penalties, and 2 of them did not lose their job, but they just had to go to a different station now. So that means that there's a 100% chance that if a police officer does something to you, this is the people who are supposed to enforce the law, which is supposed to serve, protect, and be guardians of that kind of thing. They are absolutely above the law. Absolutely above the law. And they can do anything they want to you without ever being brought to justice themselves. So all the institutions that we have operating, at least in this country, if not probably almost all the countries in the world, this is how things actually work. The exact opposite of what you think is that institution's stated goal is generally its real goal.
Well, that's right, and I can jump on that. Well, I'm going to just quickly jump back to the court, and then I'm going to respond to what you've just said, okay? So in the court, we gave a trust deed, a certificate of beneficiary to legal name, and that changed the whole atmosphere in the courtroom because the judge actually called me Irene and realised that I was not dead, okay? Because they treat us as dead persons when they give you a birth certificate in the all caps name. I think people need to do the research on that. So I can jump forward from that, and you've just talked about the police, right? Now, as we go through my criminal case, I'm going to tell you that the Ministry of Health, this Jane Birdsall, is absolutely a psychopath. There's no doubt about it. They tried to find the evidence that I'd breached anything. She couldn't find any evidence that I'd breached the mandate. She didn't tell Midwifery Council, so they didn't remove my suspension. And then she went on this witch hunt. She pulled in the ultrasonographers. They couldn't say when these forms were written, right? And in their responses through our investigation team, it went, bad luck, we couldn't find anything. And she was like still persisting that there was something there. You know, and she was going on and on. It's like the lab forms. The labs can't say when the forms were written. Yeah? So they kept making their own rules up. So this is where you come into do as you seem fit. Well, in our investigation, I'm a journalist, so I went by, and the recent turnover of the Chevron deference doctrine, right? That was put in place in 1984 and gave them all the authority to do as they seem fit. It gave the judges to interpret these statutes that they've created without the people's consent as they seem them to be. So what's in front of you, they don't have to follow. They don't have to follow their own rules. They don't have to follow their own evidence act, because they can do as they seem fit. Now, fortunately for us, the Supreme Court in July overturned that doctrine, and they're all panicking now because they can no longer do as they seem fit. What do you think to that?
The concept of trying to go up against people using their own rules that you know that they don't follow, and you know that they just make it up as they go along, seems like a big mistake and a miscalculation to me. And there's significant amounts of this free man, straw man, free man on the land, he whakaputanga, freedom movements all around the world that suffer immense amounts of pressure and pain and loss in their lives because they try to follow these rules that these people who have all the power don't follow if they don't want to. And the only people that you can have to enforce these rules upon them is them. It's like, I violated my own rules, did I? I guess the only person who can investigate me and punish me is me, and I find myself innocent. Okay, or I recuse myself, or I just walk out, right? And we heard from Sue Gray from the Outdoors and Freedom Party that close to 95% of the district court judges in New Zealand are corrupt, and that something like 75+% of the High Court judges also corrupt, or something like that. I don't know where she's getting these statistics or whether or not they're accurate, but in practice, again, trying to make people follow rules who clearly don't follow even their own rules and just make them up as they go along. I remember Penny Bright saying that to Tony Field, I forget, he was the registrar at the High Court. Penny goes, Sam, you're just making up the rules as you go along, Tony. So it's like, yeah. And this is like this is like nearly 15 years ago or something like that when I was covering that. So yeah, it's been going on a long time, probably long before my time.
Yeah, well, they're so full of trickery. I mean, like, when the lawyers write down, oh, well, it wasn't logic. Well, that's his code for telling the judge she's not obeying our rules. Okay? They're very good. You've got to really read between the lines of what they've written down. The other thing is that I could have walked away from this and just said, on your bike, I'm 68, what are you going to do with a pensioner, right? But I volunteered. We went through this to expose the lot, and what you're saying we've exposed, and it's in documents. So the judge is biased towards the prosecution, right? So at my trial, I'll go through that. But the initial fine was $50,000, $10,000 for each form. They seem to have this magical fee of $10,000. And as we went through this, the lawyers and the amicus, they were all bartering us to my worth. So it came down from 50,000 to 10,000 to 5,000 to 2,000, and then it came down to nothing. Oh, well, the end result after 5 days in trial, 5 days in a trial, so it was a total of 11 hearings. It was, well, you colluded with the woman. She was not vaccinated, and you conspired together, therefore you gave her the forms. You did that, but we're not going to charge you. So I'm convicted, but not convicted because it was all dismissed.
Well, I was thinking about my own charges the other day. You know, if I go overseas, what am I going to tell them what my conviction's about? And it's just like, well, I was convicted after 28 months in court of standing within 2 meters of another person. So if your country is frightened that such a virulent criminal will come, like I may even give people hugs in your country, okay? Like I may actually violate those terms. So if you don't want somebody that's coming within 2 meters of somebody else, don't let me in. I'm just
yeah, absolutely crazy. I remember standing outside the supermarket here when I came to New Zealand, right? And we're in this queue, we're 6 foot apart. I'm a pensioner, it's freezing cold, the wind's gusting and blowing. And I went there, I didn't wear a mask, you didn't worry about that on the outside. But it's like, well, here you are, they're distancing you for 6 feet. And then they're making you stand outside in the freezing cold weather in the middle of winter, so you get a cold and pneumonia and kill yourself. That was my experience. That's what, I mean, it's just absolutely criminally cruel and evil. And then, now I'll go back to this Jane Birdsall, we call her Jane Birdseed. Yeah, she was gunning for me because I sent her a cease and desist notice and an invoice for my fees to her doorstep. So she was going to go after me come what may. She even went to the point of creating pharmacy order forms and forging 2 of my signatures. And we had the investigation team and they concluded she wrote the bloody forms and they were not my signatures. And we put this into the court as perjury and the judge ignored it. She ignored perjury in the courtroom. So I'd filed it, as you said, with the fraud squad, put it through there and said, I want to place criminal charges against this woman. And I'd put everything up there, the forensic evidence and this wonderful, I'm going to name her here, Rachel Bride, detective, White-Matter Financial Crime Team. And this is her result. I've concluded that Judge Maxwell was in the prime position to assess the veracity of the documents and witnesses presented in the court, and she has dealt with that matter sufficiently without any new evidence proving the contrary to this matter. So I got on the phone and rang her up because she kindly gave me the phone number, and I said, you're a public servant. It's your obligation and duty, and I order you to investigate. And you are complicit under Section 50, US 1550, under the Emergency Declaration of War, and Executive Order 13818, a violation of crimes against humanity. And I've reported you to Space Force. And she put the phone down. Bang! I mean, who are these people? Well, she's on the wanted list now if she's reported. So let them expose themselves busy. We know military is the only way. We know it's eventually coming. But we know there's a better future for us out there. So we have to take the responsibility to prove that we can self-govern. And with that comes a huge responsibility.
Right. And the opposite of responsibility is convenience, I think.
Yeah.
Giving up everything that you can possibly do for yourself and give it over to somebody else to do, somebody to grow my food, somebody to generate my power, somebody to fix my roof, somebody to do this, that, the other, somebody else to cook my food, blah, blah, blah. Now, let's say you don't have time to do all of those things, and none of us do have time to do all of those things, so we all work in concert, right? And that means it's not necessarily convenience with how you survive. It's more concerned with how you make your living, how you spend your time. And a lot of people out there have significant talent and it goes underutilized because they think that they should be paid for their talent, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, that's not how it works. You are talented and you can give your contributions to mankind, and then you get paid. You get paid in all sorts of different ways that you wouldn't even dream of. You get paid in the right person turning up at the right time with the thing that you needed at the time, right? You get paid in with the right bit of knowledge that you needed at a particular time in your life just comes up. Right? So that's the thing. If you've got a talent and you can help humanity in any way, shape or form, go and do it, regardless of whether or not you perceive any real reward in it. And the universe does reward those with true grit who stick up for themselves, stick up for their fellow man, and get the job done, regardless of how little resources or encouragement they receive.
Well, I can relate to that because I've lived that. I've lived that going through this whole thing because I was on a really good income when I was working as a self-employed midwife. And it was miserable. Okay, it was miserable. The bullying, people overlooking your shoulder, reporting you if you didn't follow their rules. Okay. Looking to see if you're just about to kill somebody. You can't even make a decision because if you say, I've done this because of this, oh, no, we don't do it that way because we're objective and you must do it this way. So once all that finished and I was going through this, I had the most amazing people from the communities come forward because I'm a healer. I have lots of knowledge in healing, anticipatory care, preventative care. So that's what I've been doing, is giving people that advice. And Inland Water Council, people donate. So we have like oils, we have homeopathics, and those that can afford to give something because that helps us get more to give out to others. And the ones that don't have it, we still help and we still do consulting things. People came to my doorstep the other day and brought 2 bags full of stuff to shove in my freezer. Didn't need money. Yeah. So we've got the most amazing, generous people and brilliant mindsets in our country. They're up and down the country. They're taking on this system from all different angles. They're brilliant. They're the ones that have been suppressed, because they don't do as they seem fit. Mm. So it's amazing how everything's starting to connect and come together. And I've been to the South Island teaching the communities how to self-care, how to fix their hips, how to share the knowledge, share the remedies, do their own research, and they're growing. They're growing quickly. You don't need a university that controls what you learn, what you do. They throw the research papers out 5 years prior. There's no history, and you can only read the research papers that they give you or guide you to, So all that was in there, so we don't need that. We don't need that. We have it within us to manage ourselves, and it's just amazing how that's growing.
Yeah, I was just thinking about a little analogy of there is like, why would you go out and spread knowledge to people, even if some people like don't want to hear it and stuff like that? And it's like asking, why would you water a plant?
Yeah, well,
because it grows the more that you water it. And of course, some people don't have the gumption to realize that there's a certain amount people can take in all at one time, and that's called overwatering, and we have...
Yeah, absolutely. I've used my expertise because I've put together a full costing for a spiritual birth centre with wellness hubs, and I've done the whole costing with a central one, satellites, a whole new curriculum on integrative care, written the textbooks for it, and I've actually got India's growing now because it's going to go back currency, but I've actually got like very rich people in India really interested, and I've given it to them for free. I said, it's here for you, it's for man. I can't take it with me. So it's there, and they're so happy because it's already starting, not in New Zealand because they're not ready for it yet, but the other countries are starting to grow.
So this is how you build a movement, isn't it? This is how you leave something behind. I remember I had G. Edward Griffin on the show one time, and I talked to him about the concept of legacy, because he's been exposing the truth since like the 60s or something like that. The only person who has been doing it longer than him at that time was Jordan Maxwell. And so you get this idea that there's these people out there who've actually been promoting the truth for a long time, and towards the end of their lives they generally start to think about sharing, about giving back. And is it because death is potentially a little bit closer than it maybe once was that we reevaluate what the point of our lives and what we want to leave behind as being a priority rather than what we want to spend our time doing?
I think when you look at it that way, I mean, I'm very spiritual, so death is not a thing for me because we are infinitely, our souls are infinite, right? And we have an archaic library within us, and we all have a purpose, right? We all have a purpose. But when we're going through this physical existence, we're here to learn, to get the wisdom, and suddenly when you've overridden the obstacles, it's kind of an awakening to see that you are here and that you are helping man, and you want to leave it a better life for the kids, for the future generations. So you should, if you've got a soul, yeah, and a conscience, it comes naturally to give back. You don't have to work at it, it comes. What do you think to that?
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole idea that people have goals in life. I want to achieve this, I want to achieve that, and if they don't, they feel very disappointed in themselves. And then there's those people who don't really have goals per se in terms of like what they want to achieve in their entire life. It's just, what am I doing today? You know, there's lots of projects and things like that, lots of spinning plates. All creative people are like that. They've normally got like 2 or 3 projects on the boil at any one time, and maybe 100 other projects that they haven't really thought about doing for a while and may never get done. But this is what I'm working on today. This is what I'm working on tomorrow. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. And as a result, because something's getting done every day, everything's growing, everything's changing, everything's improving, little step by little step by little step. It's like the bumblebee. They did a scientific study of a bumblebee and an array of flowers, and they projected a mathematical course that the bumblebee could take that would be the most efficient. But the bumblebee just did this kind of like random pattern. And they're just like, man, it's just buzzing all over the place, mate. This must be the least efficient ever. And then they measured the bee's path, and all these random movements actually turned out to be more efficient than their mathematically calculated ones. So never underestimate how efficient you can be when you appear to just be bumbling around.
And the other thing is, I mean, we know they've calcified the pineal gland, you know, and the more they calcified it stopped this, because if your pineal gland's healthy and it's vibrant, just like children are very creative, aren't they? Because theirs have not been destroyed, and they're very imaginative and they can do all kinds of things. But as adults, when it's kind of been attacked, you lose that creativity. You can't multitask, okay? You can only do one thing, and you control what you have to do. So you try and control where you're going, and it doesn't work that way. You know, you'll find that, you know, more spiritual people are more creative, multitasking, capable artists, musicians. You know, we're the one that brings joy into the world.
Everybody else just boring. Right. You ever feel like that? Like, man, these people are boring. Right? They're not being themselves. They're totally guarded. They're always worried about what everybody thinks of them. They're always talking bad about other people. They're always complaining about stuff. They're always coming up with some new problem to be freaked out about and stuff. And it's like, just chill. You're never going to be able to come up with a solution to anything unless you're in a good headspace. And if you have no capacity for getting yourself into a good headspace, all you're going to create is crap.
Well, that's what's happened, isn't it? But that's what they've done with this totalitarianism thing. This is what they've done with the New World Order, is to cramp that down so people can't think out of the box, that they live in fear, that they're told they'll never be anything, right? I was told when I was younger, because I was speaking German at a very young age, because grandmother taught me. I used to go bottom in English. I used to be told, oh, you'll never do anything. You'll never accomplish anything. And I kept saying, well, watch me, mate, watch me. And like, I've authored umpteen books, done so much stuff. And I'm seeing other people that have believed that they can't do anything, that they can't create anything, that they can't overcome an obstacle. And they're still stuck, and they are miserable. And then you get the vibes, because you realize that how many times do you go to places and people are talking at you? How many times do you have a two-way conversation where you can have a debate, a laugh, a joke, and really come out with something wonderful at the end of it? You know, it's gone in community. How many times do you go to the pubs these days? I take my husband down to the pub every Sunday. You know, people on the next table aren't talking about anything. You know, it's like, well, it's somebody's birthday, so I'm going to buy them this $200 coat, right? I mean, you know, or I'm going to get the designer bag or the high heel shoes, or I might get a Gucci watch. I mean, we've had all that. That's the way it was drilled into us. You know, I mean, I did that when I worked in Saudi. I was earning heaps of money. I had all the designer stuff and slept in first-class hotels and went to Kenya on safari, and all oblivious to everything else, because I think that's the way it was. But when you actually venture out and you start to go with the people, when I was in Saudi and Bahrain and that, I didn't mix with the expats who were just getting pissed every night. I just, in Saudi, because they made their own. But I was out with the people. I went to the camel races, the weddings. I learned about them, and I got wisdom from them. Just like the little old woman in China selling the flowers on the road. You know, what is it about? It's not just the flowers. It's, well, how did she get here to be selling the flowers? Because that's where you get the wisdom from. Stories. My story.
Yeah. That's why we start the show with tell us who you are and what it is you do, right? And it's because it requires, to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, very little preparation to do an interview if you can just start your interview like that and actually just be open and be relaxed and be able to take what comes at you and be able to make something of it, right? This is how I do it, and other people, they have a much more studious approach. They have a list of questions because they think they know who you are, right? They think they know what you can teach them. They think they know what they want to know already. And I know through various experiences that you don't know what you're going to learn. You don't know what you want to know. Just let people talk, be themselves, and have fun, and then you will find out.
Well, the prime example of that is with the Ministry of Health and Jane Birdsey, because they thought they could drive me to the ground because I was just this useless eater and this idiot, right? They didn't realise who they were taking on. And if they'd had conversations with me, they wouldn't have shown just how corrupt and psychopathic they are. So shame on them, which takes me to my new book, right?
Yes. So we don't have a copy of the cover there, but however I can put one on screen for people if you just give me un momento. There we go, Ski. All right, well, there's a cautionary warning there anyway for people on screen. It says, notice to lawyers and judges, you may need to take English lessons to comprehend the logic within this book. So, can you tell us the shame on them, coercion, lies, kidnapping, and the just ice system? That's the name of the book, and you're about 400 pages into it. How do you think it's coming out?
It's coming out wonderful, actually, because it's like my story. Okay, it's my story and my journey through the COVID. First setting off in China, which I knew was a scam. It's my journey through coming back to New Zealand. You saw the selfie there with Jacinda Ardern, because I've explained that I was affiliated with the Labour Party due to volunteering and helping manage the Polish association that brought the first refugees through. You know, how he was shocked and stunned to think that, you know, I'd cooked dinner for these people and everything, and like, you know, when you found out they were trying to kill you, you went, what the fuck, you know? So I've kind of put that journey into coming back. And then the system, as I've lived through it, okay? So the coercion, yeah, and that comes with the mandate, the coercion into taking the bioweapon, yeah? It takes you through even me being coerced and forced to do a RAT test or a PCR, or you get no surgery. You reveal the corruption and the protocols in the hospital, the kidnapping of my husband and the remdesivir and giving him Valium 4 times a day for an alcohol withdrawal he never had, and they nearly killed him and I took him out. So you got that story in there. And then you've got the whole journey of the mandates and the questioning it and the responses from the psychopathic people trying to control our lives. And then you've got the entire corrupt just ice system. So it's actually called Shame on Them. You know, like you said, the coercion, the lies, the kidnapping, and the just ice system. So it actually exposes everything in real time. And it will be a history book. It will be my storybook for the future, not his story, yeah, of the truth and the facts and what they did to our people and what they did to these poor mandated midwives and segregate them. So it's a fun book because I've put little memes in there and you know, made it so in simple English for everybody to understand, and I just love writing it. And can I read a poem to you, because what started all this off was when I allowed the woman to walk around my garden, because, you know, I'm very spiritual and I connect and I do quite a bit of channeling. Well, this is a poem that was channeled down. Can I read it to you?
Sure.
Okay. It's called Faith is Our Salvation. Faith is our salvation. I cannot see, yet I'm not blind, and confusion strikes the mind. There's restless nights and dreams of future frights. No voice, no choice, no debates, and no blue lakes. Is it true, the dreams that come to me? Why am I not blind, yet I cannot see? The media and news hides the truth. This is so abstruse. Agendas so secret and policies hard to interpret, with absolutely no common sense, and yet I cannot speak in my defence. Request denied despite the evidence. No one hears from one's intelligence. Pain flares in the heart, and sadness and despair and torn apart. Jobs lost, small businesses fall, forced to live behind 4 walls. Mental health issues rise, as do teenage suicides. In my sleep, I sit in a bright red metallic car. A glass radiates the golden bar. Why should this car suddenly appear? My angelic angels shout, do not fear. An army of barbarians at the rear. Bullets fire, blasts vibrate my ears. You must obey the rules of totalitarianism or you will go to prison, as if they were the thunderous Zeus. Preaching far from the truths, claiming to protect the people, but power and money are their ego. A motorbike from hell crashes into the front. Is this some kind of stunt? This red car does not dent, for my soul will not relent. Angelic light shine down on me. The truth will win, you see. Stand up for what is right, and darkness will turn to light. Show love, compassion, and respect, and stand up to those who threaten Mother Earth, our children, and the universe. My strong faith makes this car glow gilded red. Golden beams and multitudes above my head. Ancestral voices shout, stay strong. We stood up against those who did us wrong. A choir of angels begin to sing. Courage, action, a new beginning. The corporate army charges on to the rear. A den of lions does appear. The creatures give an almighty roar. The corporates devoured on the floor, and totalitarianism is no more. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's actually nearly the end of the show tonight. So if you have wares to sell and things to self-promote shamelessly, you'll have to wait until after I've done it for myself. Now, the Vinny Eastwood Show, ladies and gentlemen, is a listener-supported broadcast, and you can support us at thevinnyeastwoodshow.com. That's Vinny with a Y because it's the most important question. And Eastwood, like, go ahead, make my news. We are live on Sundays, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 9 a.m. New Zealand Standard Time on Mondays, right here on groundzero.radio. If you have not gotten that Ground Zero Radio app yet, ladies and gentlemen, you are missing out. I'm one of those people who I require stuff to be tested very, very well and stuff to be very accessible in order for me to give it any kind of gravitas or promotion. And that Ground Zero Radio app, I've downloaded it, started listening. Instantaneous. All right. Instantaneous. It was so good. And I must encourage you to go to groundzero.radio and download that app so you can listen to the show anywhere you go. For those of you in New Zealand and you do want to support the Vin Meister, who's been doing it since 2007, I think, have been engaging in activism and media largely unpaid for the good of my countrymen and the world. And I've had people who've been supporting me all that time with $5 a week, $10 a month. We have a $30 a month one come in today. I'd like to thank my first Patreon. The other week we had terrible audio issues and stuff like that. I need to thank Hyro for becoming our first Patreon. Thank you very much. If you want to become a Patreon too and get a shout out as well, go to thevinnieeastwoodshow.com and click on that orange Become a Patreon button on the homepage. But going back to last week's show, we had a number of audio issues and stuff like that, and I was so grateful for everybody in the chat letting me know because I was able to get it sorted, I think. I certainly hope I did actually get it sorted, because if I didn't, they've probably been talking in the chat room and I've been so confused and caught up with the show that I haven't even noticed. So anyway, that is great for that round of events regardless. So donate through the PayPal, Patreon and KiwiBank, ladies and gentlemen, to support yours truly. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't remember to promote, of course, HoldenHealthcare.com. Oh my God, the new onc that they scanned is just looking absolutely beautiful on the website. There have been background developments there, and he's going to be doing a biohacking healing course later. Oh, excuse me. later on in the year. So if you guys were going to go to holdenhealthcare.com and click on the menu, and you should be able to access that biohacking. There's a free ebook coming out, and we'll be bringing David on the show to promote it shortly. Our other wonderful sponsor, reopen.nz, wants you to add your freedom business to their list. It's a directory of anti-mandate, pro-choice, all-inclusive businesses in New Zealand. And I remember when I started promoting them back in the day, there might have been like, I think, a few, but not too many people on there. But since having sponsored my show for, I think all the way since the middle of COVID, really, thank you, Henry, so much for your help, bro. We've gotten hundreds and hundreds of businesses from all sorts of fields and from all around the country added onto that list. So it's absolutely fantastic. I'd like to give a little bit of a shout out to the people in the chat room. Tayuri Mason, always in the chat room, going hard, bro. Thank you so much for tuning in, man. And over in the Twitch chat, we've got DK Spiracy, WCB 99, the absolute stalwarts in there. And we've got Nagushka and Rage Against Machine in there as well, guys. Welcome. And over on YouTube, Debbie Lacey, always lovely to have you. Thank you so much, Total Domination, for tuning in, bro. Amos, love you, man. And Paul John, good to see you again, brother. Yeah, so many of the old stalwarts and cool people in there, as well as the lovely Luna Long Shadow. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for all of those people who sponsor and support the show. Thank you in perpetuity to my wonderful guest, Irene Kalinowski, as well, because honestly, there was so much she's done for me and helped me with in terms of advice and homeopathy and all those sorts of things. And thank you very much to Calvin and Hannah from Counterspin as well, because if I wasn't at that gig, I wouldn't have met Irene. So cheers, guys, and just gratitude is the attitude. Thank you, everybody, for anything that you've ever done. And last point, and I want to try and make this happen every show, because I think it's very encouraging. Think about all you've been through. Think about all the things that people have done to you. Think about all those unfortunate accidents and things that have set you back in life. And then think about all the good things you've done for people. Think about the fact that you're still here. You still have your intellect. You still have courage. You still have heart. You still have your soul. And you still have your sense of humor. There's not many people who can claim all of those things that they have currently retained because of what's been taken from them. You've retained them against all the odds, and you should be very, very proud of yourself. Good on you. Keep up the good work. That's what people used to tell me, and I didn't really understand what it meant until recently. Good, like doing good, being a good person, there's good and there's evil, right? And when people are encouraging another person, they're saying, keep it up, keep going, keep doing it. Just like ducks and geese, when they fly in formation, the guy who's flying out and the head of the formation has most of the wind shear on him, and everybody else has taken it on his back. So that's why they yell and they tell him encouragement. Keep it up, bro. Keep it up. Come on, keep flying. You can do it. You can do it. Love it. Love you. Love all of you. And just want you to know that you are very special. You are very important. And don't ever doubt yourself. Okay? You got it, man. Just go and frickin' do it, because every moment that you're not doing what you're meant to be doing is one more moment that another person who could have had their life changed by you doesn't. And that's one person, another person, another person. Each moment that goes by, you could be changing people's lives, and in so doing, change your own and change the world. So get out there and do it. Don't make any excuses. Don't let fear dictate what you should and shouldn't do. Don't be worried about they might think I'm crazy or something like that. They already do. And if they already do, then you've got nothing to lose, okay? We're being enslaved and subsequently exterminated by ruthless criminal sociopathic scumbaggery, dear? Okay, maybe a little bit of a shift in priority with what you're actually doing while you still remain on this place of existence with some kind of remaining freedom that you've got left in order to just put your body onto the levers and the gears of the machine to make it stop. Because while it runs in its odious fashion, nobody is free. Keep up the good work. It's keep up the great work. There's one work that we're all here contributing to, whether we know it or not. The great work is to end slavery in all its forms. End it once and for all and forever, so that there are no masters and there are no slaves ever to darken the doorways of mankind's sacred spirit. That is the great work that you are here to do. That is the great work that is upon you. It is a horrendous obligation. And that's why you've got to keep your sense of humour, because otherwise it'll crush the living life out of your soul. Now, thank you very much, Irene, for
Can I just add something to them? If anyone wants any help in wellness, okay, they can email me. They can go to nonresidentsettler.org under wellness akusha. Connect with me. I'm happy to give free advice. I've put some homeopathic remedies together to help with sleep, to help with back and muscle support, exhaustion, which you're all going through, and also one jab support to help with the shedding. And if you get, I'll give you advice on if you get, coughs, colds, anything from shingles. I've just self-cured myself on that and other people. So, I'm happy to do that. And we don't charge for it. They can give a little donation. For people that can afford the remedies, they pay for them. If you can't afford them and you're really stuck, we'll make sure we get them to you.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, it's a good idea. And, homeopathy, that's how you achieve homeostasis for your homies. Thank you very much, Irene, for chilling out with us today and letting us know your stories and giving us access to your wonderful mind and the encouragement that you dish out like cherry pie at a country banquet. So thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without, as they say in Israel, further ado, that's the show. And now a word from Ground Zero Radio.
Attention all Ground Zero fans. Aftermath.media is celebrating our 4-year anniversary with a spectacular deal just for you. Wow! For a limited time, you can get an Aftermath Premium yearly subscription for only $79. That's right, just $79 for a full year of exclusive content, ad-free listening, and premium features. Dive into a world of incredible stories, top-tier journalism, and the best in entertainment. Whether you're a long-time listener or new to Ground Zero, this is the perfect time to join the Aftermath family. Don't miss out on this amazing anniversary special. Visit Aftermath.media today and sign up for your Aftermath Premium yearly subscription at just $79. But hurry, this offer won't last long. Celebrate with us and elevate your media experience to the next level. Aftermath.media, the ultimate resource for parapolitical and paranormal fans. Visit Aftermath.media and subscribe today. That's Aftermath.media.